Hi, and welcome to UFO UAP Disclosure Infos and Updates. And that's my English version. I'm JC, and with this series, I'm trying to keep you updated on the latest developments around the UFO phenomenon. The news take no break, and I can cover all of it, unfortunately. You find many links in my posting section to dig deeper into that rabbit hole, so just take a peek. Before I give you a short summary of the Global Disclosure Day 2025 online event, I'd like to introduce you to a new whistleblower who has come forward last week in Jeremy Corbell's and George Knapp's podcast Weaponized. He was also scheduled to take part in that official UAP hearing in September, but he withdrew because of personal reasons. After a few and intense conversations with Jeremy Corbell, he finally decided to go public. He skipped that public hearing because then he didn't want it to become a public figure. He was fine with his official written testimony, which was given to the UAP task force. But he got convinced that the public should know what he saw, because extremely advanced technology is completely hidden from the US Congress and the public. I'm talking about Daniel Cockrell, a ranger who was on training unit in 2006 at the Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. He suffered a back injury from a training accident and was housed in a medical complex on the base. So in one night he woke up from a loud electrical sound, like a huge generator powering up and down. Even the building was slightly shaking. He got curious, snitched his crutches, and walked up to the night officer who was sitting behind a desk inside watching a movie over his headphones. He didn't hear much of the sound Daniel was asking him about. Cockrell borrowed a cigarette from the officer and went outside. That loud electrical sound was gone. Just some normal humming of generators. As he looked to the left, he could see an open field like 300 or 400 yards away, surrounded by huge floodlights. Lots of military personnel was present, along some SUVs and Humvees. But the biggest attraction was sitting right in the middle, in mid-air, like 20 to 30 feet above the ground, just hovering, completely soundless, with no cockpit or propulsion system visible to the eye. Before he tried to digest what he's seen, the object moved slowly towards. It moved slowly upwards, of course, in a straight line, not just a wobble, just straight up until it reached the canopy. And then it suddenly took off with undefined speed and towards the north. That's what he said. Just like in Star Trek with warp speed. Zip, and gone. But before that, he was able to see the whole thing. And a perfectly triangle-shaped object, which had a white light on each corner and in the middle. What Cockrell baffled the most was that there was absolutely no sound, and this can't be explained with our known technology. You would hear a sonic boom or something. That object came back several times, hovered over the base for a few seconds, and zipped away again. Cockrell was surely fascinated what kind of new technology the US military seems to have, and he was aware of the importance of secrecy in the military. After watching it come and go for a few times, he went back inside. He asked the officer if he would know of such an object, and the officer flatly answered, "Oh, it might be that Aurora-project, testing a new bird or something." And with bird is a plane, like a flying object, military flying plane that is meant by bird. So everything seemed normal and not of further interest. And by the way, that so-called Aurora-project has never been officially acknowledged, but it's said to be in existence since the 1980s. So what did Daniel Cockerell see that night? It was a perfect triangle, 300 to 400 feet in length on each side, 6 to 8 feet thick or in height. No visible cockpit, no visible propulsion system. Absolutely soundless and with an enormous speed, not explainable with known technology. So, if this was indeed a top secret program, why would they test it openly on that base? That's what he was asking himself. The compound is not somewhere in a remote desert, but on the coast of Florida, surrounded by lots of other facilities. So this was all confusing to Daniel Cockerell. And the visit by some other force seems now as well likely. But no one else took notice that night. The involved military personnel excluded, of course. The officer had no interest, and if it is or was it a secret program, no one is allowed to talk about it anyway, let alone that they know any details of it. Cockerell was lucky that night because no one saw him while he was observing the scene outside. The officer didn't report him for going outside for a cigarette, so Cockerell was not presented with an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. You sign up to be silent. That's what it is. So he wrote down what happened and submitted that written testimony to the UAP committee as well as to the Pentagon. And here you see the document that he submitted. So it was a full report, and he asked for further investigation. Even the Pentagon sent 15 officials to meet with him. And Arrow was supposed to contact him for further questions. But he hasn't heard from this office since then, not even once. Remarkable so, since that office was formed to exclusively investigate such UAP sightings, especially over military bases. So Cockerell's testimony is just another confirmation of what many other eyewitnesses saw in the last 10-20 years. Some of these accounts go even further back in time. Well, UFOs come in various shapes and sizes. At least we have a classification of UAP developed by the Skywatcher team. Lately it's a triangle, which is called Tetra here in that picture. Lately it's a triangle that is seen by most eyewitnesses, but mostly those UAP have an enormous size. Not to confuse with the most modern fighter jets, like this one here. although it looks impressive. They have nothing in common with what eyewitnesses saw. It's all about the invisible propulsion system and the missing sound, combined with outrageous speed. This is what makes all official explanations so ridiculous and not believable. It's without the doubt important for the military to develop new weapons and secret programs. That's nothing new. Secret for the enemy, but also secret to the US Congress, who provides the tax money. But on top of that, if such new technologies are exclusively used for new weapon systems and not for the good of humanity, then it's a crime against the human race and its development on every level. That's my opinion. The link for the full interview with Daniel Cockerell is listed down below. Now I want to show you in short the letter that Dr. Stephen Greer submitted to the UAP committee the night before the hearing took place last September. He names 6 more witnesses who were directly involved in some of those black programs, and they are ready to testify under oath. The letter can be read and downloaded on Stephen Greer's website in case you want to read their stories in full. It's worth it. Also interesting, the blacklist of facilities and companies which are involved in those covered programs to recover UFOs and to re-engineer their technology. So I'm asking myself, how many more witnesses are needed? Well, here's another one who went public last week on Ross Coulthard's podcast, Reality Check. It's Joshua Sheldon, a former nuclear security guard. He is reporting of logic-defying incidents at and around Nellis Air Force Base, which is in close proximity to Las Vegas. Nellis Air Force Base is also one of the most important bases in the US for nuclear weaponry. Well, since this is widely known now, it's probably not the most important base for that anymore. He also wrote a full report on what he encountered, and he submitted it to the FBI for further investigation. And it gets kind of creepy when he starts to talk about so-called shadow people at some scenes. Well, you find the link of that interview in my postings section. Check it out. Well, to understand this new technology, we have to look at consciousness and how especially human consciousness works, and how to control it. It's believed that humans have the ability, natural or by training, to connect to technology through consciousness, which is largely what Neuralink is experimenting on. Remote viewing just seems like a warm-up to what human consciousness is allegedly capable of doing. Too far-fetched? Science fiction? Well, Sergeant Dan Sherman, has just published his book on an above secret program titled Above Black, Project Preserve Destiny. This was, and maybe still is under a new name, a secret program to explore and exploit human consciousness to establish contact with alien beings. This program was operated by the NSA, the National Security Agency. Dan Sherman himself was part of that black program. I recommend the full interview. Link is provided below. Finally, I will tell you a little bit about the Global Disclosure Day 2025, an online event via Zoom, which is now available on YouTube to review. It was organized by the New Paradigm Institute on October 19th from 7 to 11 p.m. Central European Time. The discussion panel included, among others, the Member of Congress Eric Burleson, the attorney Danny Sheehan, the journalist Ross Coulthard, the historian Richard Dolan, Colonel Carl Nell as former member of the Pentagon UAP Task Force, the experiencer Chris Bledsoe, and Anna Brady Estevez, PhD, as a member of the UAP Disclosure Fund. Danny Sheehan, attorney and founder of the New Paradigm Institute, started the event with an overview of the history on UAP and how it was and still is possible to keep it all secret, especially from the US Congress. He describes the criminal methods to keep everything under the rug, and he speaks openly about the fact that the US is governed by the military-industrial complex and the national security state. Sheehan also founded over a year ago a grassroots organization, Citizens for Disclosure, which is represented in 32 states today, and its legal branch is closely working with senators and representatives on Capitol Hill. Following this introduction, Colonel Carl Nell and Richard Dolan came on for a discussion about catastrophic disclosure and its implications, even if there would be a controlled disclosure. What can be disclosed? Technology that is already in military hands to develop weapon systems? And what are the consequences of such disclosure? Without a doubt, we will question our institutions and probably also our government because they didn't do anything in the last decades. And are we prepared for the existence of non-human intelligence? Are we ready to rewrite our whole history if their presence probably reaches back for thousands of centuries? How will the markets and our fragile economic system we all depend on react in the end? So many questions we could and should have been prepared for a long time ago. But it didn't happen. Maybe the time never seemed right, or maybe the secret was kept deliberately. Unfortunately, some believe disclosure is dead and won't happen anytime soon, if ever. There might be a simple reason for it, because there is no plan B after disclosure. So plan A gets executed, meaning to keep it secret no matter what the cost may be. But for all those UAP researchers, journalists, historians, and scientists, this is no reason to stop pressuring Congress to investigate the truth. We are definitely at a crossroad for humanity. At least that's how I see it. The panel shared the opinion that our knowledge about the universe has dramatically changed in the last decades. Our consciousness is shifting onto the next level. Aliens, civilizations are not longer in question. And only the truth can push disclosure forward. Even if it gets temporarily unpleasant. But remember, it's again the red or the blue pill. The choice is yours. Concluding this episode, I have a nice quote from the moderator of the Global Disclosure Day 2025, Mr. Jim Garrison. And he said, "We don't know what we don't know." So, what can I say? Stay curious. And my cat likes to say hi too. If he just passes by, he can say hi too. Oh, it's a she, sorry. And, well, I see you around next time. Maybe in English again. In German for sure. Peace.